a seat?
No signal.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
Hare Krishna, everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
First, I would like to thank Shankar Prabhu for that nice introduction. It was more than we deserved, but we're very grateful. And I would also like to thank Niyamani Prabhu for giving us the chance to speak today. As you can see, we're not really so qualified to speak much to all of you who are senior to us in age and devotion, but we would like to just present something that we got inspiration from in our life and we wanted to share, and we'll explain more in the class. But before we begin, we would like to seek your blessings, because you're all Vaishnavas, the senior disciples, Prabhupada disciples in the room, and I would like to seek all your blessings for both of us, so that we can speak something beneficial for ourselves and everybody, and also purify ourselves in the process. Thank you very much. So we'll begin with HG Halayudha, and then we'll go into the class.
Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana 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 Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, as is the tradition of our parampara, we should always begin with Mangalacharan because we need to invoke auspiciousness to whatever program that we're doing. So we shall start with the standard Mangalacharan prayers. Many of you already know this, so please sing along with me. Om Agyantirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guruho Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaganaranvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijanasahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Haripriye. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So now that we've finished the Mangalacharan, we're going to the class. And today's topic, as you can see, is the glories of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And why are we talking about this topic? We'll talk about that, but before that, here's the agenda for today. We're going to cover a few topics, including what is the importance of the Srimad Bhagavatam, why is it one of the central literatures of our movement, and how it is actually the storehouse of sweetness that we can tap into in our life. We'll also examine why it has practical value in our day-to-day lives, and also the importance of sharing the wealth of knowledge that it has to the whole world. And as all of you know, in a few days, the month of Kartik is about to begin. And this is a very auspicious month of the year for us Gaudiya Vaishnavas. We fondly remember the pastime of Mother Yashoda tying Krishna to the wooden garden border, and we do a lot of extra spiritual activities throughout this month. People often take vratas or vows of determination they'll make during this month to either increase their sadhana, increase their preaching, and just to deepen their concentration on Krishna. So what we wanted to encourage all of you today is that perhaps you can consider taking up a vrata of entering or deepening your reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the month of Kartik. So that's the mood in which we want to give this class and the motivation behind it. So with that, we can get started.
So, the first item on our agenda was why Srimad Bhagavatam? What is the point of reading Srimad Bhagavatam? So, we are coming to the ISKCON temple here. Many of us are either regular attendees of the Sunday program or we're coming here for the first time, but we've heard of ISKCON in some capacity. Now, one thing that is for sure about ISKCON is that it's a Vedic society. So, the first question becomes, why does ISKCON emphasize Srimad Bhagavatam so heavily? Why not the Vedas? Or why not any other literature? So, does anyone actually have any ideas why? Maybe we could take like one or two people if they have any. Sure.
The author of the Vedas said that this is the fruit of all the Vedas, and he himself presented the Bhagavatam as the.
Yeah. Yeah. So his response was that the author of the Vedas, the one who compiled the Vedas, Vyasadeva, has mentioned himself that the Srimad Bhagavatam is actually the matured fruit of the Vedas. So we can begin by the story of Vyasadeva, as Gopal pointed out, that the compiler of Vedas is Vyasadeva. So it happened one day that Vyasadeva had written many literatures. He compiled the Vedas, he had written the Upanishads, which are a more indirect form of explaining everything in the Vedas, but still very difficult to churn out what it's actually saying. He also wrote Mahabharata, which glorifies the four purposes of life. Artha, which means money, dharma, religiosity, kama, sense enjoyment, and finally moksha, liberation. Despite all of this, even though these are the four goals of life, Vyasadeva himself was not satisfied. So this begs the question, why is that even the case? And Narada Muni, seeing this dissatisfaction, seeing that Vyasadeva was discontent in his current situation, goes and approaches him. And he tells him, you've written about so many different things, but you've forgotten one thing. That one thing is the topic of Krishna. So, taking up this mood as instructed by his guru, Vyasadeva then decides to pen what he considers to be his own greatest work. Because after this, he compiles no other literature. It is the final thing that he writes. And that is Srimad Bhagavatam. So, we can see this verse which was penned by Srila Vyasadeva. And I'll sing this verse and also read the translation for everyone. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam Shukhamukhadamrita dravasamyutam Pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam Muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavuka. The translation is as follows. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Shukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. So, we see that Srila Vyasadeva, the author himself, the compiler of the Vedas, is now saying, we must drink this Srimad Bhagavatam. And after this, he compiles no other thing. But now the question might come up. Well, Srimad Bhagavatam itself says that actually we need no other scripture. So this is the point that Vyasadeva makes in the previous verse. So we can see it in this quote. It says, this beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyas, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? And if you guys recall, whenever you're writing an essay, if you want to make a point stick, you should write it first at the beginning and also at the end. So this is from the beginning, and also in the final chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, he makes the same point. Srimad Bhagavatam is declared to be the essence of all Vedanta philosophy. One who has felt satisfaction from its nectarian mellow will never be attracted to any other literature. So the point is that Vyasadeva himself is now declaring this to be the greatest thing for us to read. And this can give us whatever we want. Now, this begs a question. We've established that Bhagavatam is the king of scriptures, but we're using Bhagavatam itself to prove it. If I say I'm the greatest human of all time, is anyone going to believe me? So, this begs the question, why should we even believe what Bhagavatam has to say about itself? Every other Purana, every other Upanishad, the Falashruti will always say, this work is the greatest work. You should read it at this time, at this place. So what makes Bhagavatam so special? Why is it that even Bhagavatam can't glorify itself and we take it to be actual praman, actual statements that we should believe? And so the reason comes actually by Jiva Goswami in the Tattva Sandarbha. He establishes why Srimad Bhagavatam is actually the greatest of all literature. And it's because of one fact. Every other Purana, not every other Purana, but many other Puranas actually agree that Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence and it glorifies it. So first we have a verse from the Padma Purana. It says, Ambarisha Shukha Proktam Nityam Bhagavatam Shrino Pathasva Swamukhe Naiva Yadichasi Bhavakshayam. O Ambarisha, hear constantly the Bhagavatam spoken by Shukadev. Read it with your own mouth if you desire destruction of material life. So we're seeing that the goal of Bhagavatam is starting to be established. And that even the Padma Purana, a completely different Purana, is glorifying Srimad Bhagavatam. Oh, can we take questions here?
Yeah. It's relevant on this topic, that's why.
If it's quick.
Yes. So if Bhagavatam was written last, how do we understand the other Puranas are referencing Bhagavatam?
So that's a great question, Prabhu. So there are many Puranas that were actually not even written by Vyasadeva. For example, Vishnu Puran was compiled by his father, Parashar Muni. And there's a lot of different Puranas that may come and glorify them. And that doesn't mean that because it's not written by Vyasadeva, that it's not to be bona fide. What it means is that there are other acharyas, there are other people who have come and glorified it whenever they've written these Puranas. That's the understanding.
Okay, so then that means that the other Puranas were written after.
Yes. Also often it may also come that sometimes because Vyasadeva, he has the spurtis of what's going to happen in the future as well. So he may himself write whatever's going to happen, but at the same time, he hasn't written that literature. There's oftentimes these breaks in time which may occur. So there's many ways to understand this, and it's up to us how we want to really think of it. Also in the Garuda Purana, there's the same point is being made. This work is most complete. It expresses the meaning of the Brahma Sutras and Mahabharata. It is the explanation of Gayatri and reinforces the meaning of the Vedas. It is the Sam Veda amongst the Puranas and has arisen directly from the Lord. It has 12 volumes and 100 divisions. It has 18,000 verses. It is called Srimad Bhagavatam. So same point is being made by the Garuda Purana. And if you look in Tattva Sandarbha, one can find hundreds and hundreds of citations for just proving the same point that Srimad Bhagavatam is the king of all literature. So what is the point of reading Srimad Bhagavatam? We've glorified it, we've said that it's the king of all literatures. But what's the goal? Whenever we want to read anything, we often read with a goal in mind. For example, if we're taking classes, we read a textbook with the goal of being able to gain some knowledge from that textbook. So Srimad Bhagavatam is not like the Vedas. The Vedas have this convoluted way of talking about Krishna and attaining the supreme planet. But Bhagavatam is very direct. Vedas oftentimes tries to confuse people Because there are many people who want different things. There are people who want material benedictions. There are people who want liberation. So Bhagavatam cuts straight to the point, and it only focuses on developing a relationship with Krishna. That is the goal of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this separates it from the Vedas, and this also explains why our movement is so heavily focused on Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Vyasadeva himself, being the author, after being dissatisfied, becomes satisfied upon writing this literature. So the point is to be made that he becomes satisfied because previously he had talked about the 4 Purusharthas, as I mentioned. But now he's going to introduce the 5th one. What is that Purushartha? Prema. Love of Godhead. And this is what satisfies the person. So that is why Srimad Bhagavatam is the king of all literatures. And that is why we must study it. So we have just talked about Bhagavatam being the supreme literature. We've established why to read it. We've established that even Vyasadeva himself, after writing it, felt satisfaction. But that's not a personal incentive to read Bhagavatam, if I'm being honest. Many of us, we can agree theoretically with things, but we also need to practically experience things to really have a taste for it. And the way we have to understand this is that Bhagavatam is the storehouse of sweetness. And as we all know, sweet things is something we can get addicted to. So Bhagavatam is the best way for us to actually understand how to get addicted to Krishna consciousness. And so this is why we will now practically try to demonstrate how Bhagavatam is good for us. So, as I mentioned before, I had shown this verse, and I want to highlight the 3rd line. Pibata Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam. That Pibata, Vyasadeva says that Pibata, you should drink it. What should you drink? Bhagavatam. Even though it's a book, you must drink it. You must drink the words. You must relish every single word that is there. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains that every single word in Srimad Bhagavatam can actually give prema. It's just very hard for us to understand because we don't have the vision for it. But every single word in Bhagavatam has that potency. And Rasam Alayam, this Bhagavatam is the storehouse of rasa. We might hear, what is rasa? We've oftentimes heard this word. And perhaps the best way to put it in a short sentence is that it is the emotion and relationship that is experienced with Krishna. And so Bhagavatam is going to show that Krishna is actually the storehouse of rasa and that it itself is the storehouse of rasa. So it happens that Krishna, when he walks in to the arena to kill Kamsa, when he's going to fight with all the wrestlers, and he's going to kill Kamsa, there's a verse that appears in Bhagavatam, and it describes the plight of all of the people who are assembled there. There are many different types of people, and every single person begins to experience a rasa with Krishna. So the verse is as follows. Mallanam shanirnam naravara strinam smaro murtiman Gopanam svajano satam kshiti bhujam Shasta svapitro shishu Mrityur bhojapatir virada vidusham Tatvam param yoginam Vrishlinam paradevate vidito Rangam gatah sagraja. The various groups of people in the arena regarded Krishna in different ways when he entered it with his elder brother. The wrestlers saw Krishna as a lightning bolt, the men of Mathura as the best of males, the women as Cupid in person, the cowherd men as their relative, the impious rulers as a chastiser, his parents as their child, the king of Bhojas, which is Kamsa, as death, the unintelligent as the Supreme Lord's universal form, the yogis as the absolute truth, and the Vrishnis as the supreme worshipable deity. So there's actually 12 different types of rasas, and All of these are actually described within this verse. It's just, you need to read some works by the Goswamis and that will be properly explained. But everything is there within Krishna. And we're slowly starting to get an understanding of how rasa is being present within Srimad Bhagavatam. So we can take a look at this picture and our vision has now changed slightly. We can see that Kamsa is seeing Krishna's death as mentioned in the verse. We can imagine that the parents, that Nanda Maharaj, and all of the assembled people who had that parental affection for Krishna, how they were looking at him, how the women of Mathura were thinking of Krishna, how all of the people there were thinking of Krishna in their own way. The vision is just not that Kamsa is being killed by Krishna here. It's a lot deeper than that. And that's the point of Bhagavatam. It shows the whole picture. It's not as simple as one scene is being depicted. There's a lot of things happening all at once. So the sweetness of Krishna though is shown most in one place. And that happens in the midst of the gopis. Krishna himself engages in the highest rasa with the gopis. As we know, many of us might have heard, there's a degradation, right? We have Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. Madhurya being the highest. So Krishna himself revels in the rasa that is experienced with the gopis. And I would like to make a short disclaimer here. We're going to show a couple of verses and we'll ask you to follow along as well. I'm going to say a line, you will have to repeat. The point is, we cannot fully understand the depth of this. We're not qualified to do so. But we can get a glimpse of it when we recite these verses. And as we begin to cherish them, we'll understand that Srila Prabhupada's mood was also to get us here. It's just that he wanted us to first understand the rest of Bhagavatam, get our philosophical base, and then read the 10th canto. So the mood is not to be that we're going to rush into the 10th canto, into these pastimes. It's just to get a glimpse, so that we ourselves might get motivated to read the first 9 cantos, and then get to the 10th canto. So this is a verse about Krishna when he enters in the midst of the gopis. So please repeat after me. Tasa Mahavira Bhuchauri Smayamana Mukhambuja Pitambara Dhara Sragvi Sakshan Manmatha Then Lord Krishna, with a smile on his lotus face, appeared before the gopis. Wearing a garland and a yellow garment, he had directly appeared as one who bewilders the mind of Cupid, who himself bewilders the mind of the ordinary people. So also we can see in how the Sanskrit, this is really talking about and glorifying Krishna, manmatha, that he churns the mind of that person who churns the mind of everyone. So this is how Bhagavatam also uses poetry to even glorify Krishna and show rasa. Because rasa is truly experienced through one thing, kavya, through poetry. So Bhagavatam is also the king of poetry in that way. And we would also like to show this picture where Krishna, we couldn't find an actual picture of Krishna appearing, but this is the closest where we could find. But you can see that Krishna is starting to appear in front of the gopis as they're remembering him. And we can see that Krishna himself dons that beautiful smile that he has, that half smile, and he looks with that kripa kataksha, that sidelong glance of mercy. This is another verse. So this was spoken by Shukadeva Goswami, and it's said in the verse prior to this one that the gopis, when they heard the sound of the flute, what Krishna was playing, their minds got agitated by a particular form of Krishna. And what's mentioned is that they were not able to say anything after, even though they had so many things that they wanted to say. They wanted to glorify that form of the Lord, but they weren't able to do so. And so Shukadeva Goswami, understanding their plight, understanding how they're feeling, he decides to recite this verse in order to relieve them of their pain. So please repeat after me. Barha pidam natavara vapuhu Karnayoho Karnikaram Balakiram Natavarapu Karnayoho Karnikaram Bhibhradvasah Kanakakapisham Vaijayantim Chamalam Bhibhradvasah Kanakakapisham Vaijayantim Chamalam Randhran Venor Adhara Sudhaya Purayan Gopavrindair Randhran Venor Adhara Sudhaya Purayan Gopavrindair Vrindaranyam Swapadaramanam Pravishad Gita Kirtihi Vrindaranyam Swapadaramanam Pravishad Gita Kirtihi. So now the description of this form which agitated the minds of the gopis is being described. Wearing a peacock feather ornament upon his head, a blue karnikara flowers on his ears, a yellow garment as brilliant as gold, and the Vaijayanti garland. Lord Krishna exhibited his transcendental form as the greatest of dancers as he entered the forest of Vrindavan, beautifying it with the marks of his footprints. He filled the holes of his flute with the nectar of his lips, and the cowherd boys sang his glories. So we can see this form and we can try to meditate upon it in this month of Kartik as we read Srimad Bhagavatam now. So this is, you can see this is kind of the picture. Of course, in the verse it talks about how the Gopas are also following him and they're singing his glories, but we can see that the actual form of Krishna is very similar to as described in that specific verse. So I have a question for some people here. So all the Prabhujis, how many of you like sweets? Okay. Now Matajis, how many times do you have to scold Prabhujis to stop eating sweets? So I've got a solution for all of you. Instead of engaging in the sweetness of gulab jamuns or whatever sweet that everyone likes, instead we can try and relish the sweetness of Srimad Bhagavatam. And the one thing about Srimad Bhagavatam is that it's actually a medicine as opposed to something that gives us a disease. So the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's sweet and it's a medicine. So that's why I would like to now show a verse that actually describes this point so that we may get motivated more and understand that we should really read the Srimad Bhagavatam. Nivrita tarshay rupagiyamanad Bhavaushadakshotra manobhiramad Ka uttama shloka gunanuvadat Puman virajeta vina pashugnat Glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the Parampara system. That is, it is conveyed from the spiritual master to disciple. Such glorification is relished by those no longer interested in the false, temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul, undergoing repeated birth and death. Therefore, who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord except a butcher, or one who is killing his own self? So the ending is very powerful. It's an encouragement to us in the form of an extreme statement. So this is often called arthavad. It's meant to promote us to do things. So this is such a thing that we should really read Srimad Bhagavatam, relish it, because it's sweet and it's also medicine. So all Matajis, you can rest assured, if Prabhus, they start reading this, hopefully they'll be fine now. So the final point I would like to make about this is that because Kartik is coming up, the only point of this was to encourage three things: Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Smaranam. Our jobs in Kartik should be to increase these things as much as possible, and Srimad Bhagavatam is the best way to do so. If we can listen to Srimad Bhagavatam, our life will be perfect. If we do glories of Srimad Bhagavatam, our life will be perfect. And if we remember the words of Srimad Bhagavatam, our lives will be perfect. So please try and engage in the sweetness of Srimad Bhagavatam. That is the whole message of this. We've gotten a practical description of it. And the point is now, it's our job to take it up and really relish the sweetness.
At this point, I would like to talk about the practical value of the Bhagavatam, because up to now, we've talked about the spiritual benefits of it. But one may wonder, until the point at which they reach prema, or wherever they are now in their bhakti, why is this Bhagavatam useful? One may even wonder if they're qualified to open the Srimad Bhagavatam. After all, it's 12 cantos, 18 volumes, 18,000 verses, it's so many books. It's very intimidating, it could be, right? But I want to show you some jewels about why it's worth opening that book. As my Maharaj says, he says, crack that book open. And he tells us to read. And here's why. This Srimad Bhagavatam, it actually covers every psychological condition known to mankind. In today's world, we have a lot of psychological conditions. At least our generation does. There's a lot of people with stress, anxiety, depression, anger, fear, other sorts of issues that are not just physical, but more internal, more mental, more subtle. And people are searching for all means to solve these problems. They're pouring money into medicine, into therapy, into this and that. And those are good. We believe in medicine. But what can we do in our spiritual life that can also solve those problems? I'm here to tell you that our teachers tell us that the Srimad Bhagavatam can do the same. Think about it. In this Bhagavatam, there are many stories of devotees, right? And these devotees, some of them are children. We see Dhruv Maharaj, we see Prahlad Maharaj. Some of them are kings. They have a lot of responsibility, family, duty, and pressure. And then you also see great sages who are just focused on spirituality and investing a lot of time there. No matter the audience we pick, you'll often find in this Bhagavatam that they eventually hit some psychological issue. And then they need the help of their Guru and Krishna to overcome it. And by practicing bhakti, they resolve it. Can you all relate to that? That we need Guru and Krishna in our lives, and this is the book that shows those examples. One more thing is that at the stage we're at, like sadhakas, we're aspiring devotees, we're practicing devotees, we're not yet completely pure. At least I'm not. Maybe some of you are. But this Bhagavatam is helpful not just to give us knowledge of how to alleviate psychological conditions, but it will actually help cleanse our heart. And one of the glorifications of this Bhagavatam is the following verse. Nashta prayeshu bhagavadeshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttanashloke bhaktir bhavati naishti. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So the point is this: we don't have to be a pure devotee to open the Bhagavatam. We can do it right now, right here. I promise you it's okay. And it'll actually be so helpful. One thing that I can say from my practical experience, and I'm sure Tejas can relate, that as we grow up in life, there's so many issues we face, obstacles in our goals, a lot of setbacks, and life is not always easy, right? What do they say? It's not all sunshine and rainbows, especially in New Jersey. So, this Bhagavatam I found, when I opened it and I read the stories of these devotees, it has actually helped me. Even when I read it and I was not so mature in my bhakti, not that I am now, but I was completely immature, it still made some impact on me. It went deep into my heart. And I felt like, even if I don't understand everything, there's something here. And it's worth exploring. So, apart from all the logical reasons we've established, I'm just imploring all of you that it's worth trying this Bhagavatam. And everybody can derive some benefit from it. Just like we've talked about the different rasas everybody has with Krishna, everybody has some relation to some character in the Bhagavatam. You know, you have somebody you really get because you go through a similar thing, or maybe you have a similar personality. And when you read these books, the Srimad Bhagavatam, it'll give you something that's worth hoping for. One more thing I'll show you these pictures is this. The modern material world is also understanding the value of things like the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I'll give you a very mundane example. There's a lot of parents in the room, so how many of your kids like superhero movies? Raise your hand. Or have liked in the past. And maybe even some of you might like it, right? There's definitely a few hands I've seen. Personally, I like superhero movies growing up. Now, there's a whole movie franchise named Marvel, and they produce films that gross billions of dollars in revenue. Something I found that was hilarious is that even Marvel is stealing ideas from the Bhagavatam. And this is one example. You see, on the right, you'll see like a scientific and cool picture of something we call the multiverse, which is an idea they're exploring for the next 5-10 years in just movies, let alone research and modern science and everything. But the Srimad Bhagavatam literally has on its cover the multiverse. And this is 5,000 years old, or even older. It's eternal. Vyasadeva wrote it, right? So this knowledge is not new. It's something that's been borrowed from our culture, and we should appreciate it. And we can see that even others who are not even devotees are trying to take it and use it for their profit. So what about us, right? The other practical value, especially for those who are kids or parents, is that this Bhagavatam is very good for intellectual development. I'll give you an example. There's a few kids I've seen in the room, or former kids. How many of you guys had to take a foreign language in school? Raise your hand. All of us, right? Whether it's Spanish or French or Italian. The reason is, there's some scientific basis on that if we learn other languages, we can expand our brain, become more intelligent. And I can say that if you just learn Srimad Bhagavatam or recited shlokas or talk about its stories, even to kids, they can learn some other languages, not just English. But in Sanskrit, there's a lot of poetry, there's a lot of intricacy. You can take, 12 years to learn basic Sanskrit? It's nothing so simple, but if kids start being exposed to these things from an early age, it's very good for the brain development. We all know Radhika Raman Prabhu, right? He's famous in our society because his mother taught him and his brother the Bhagavatam from an early age. And that's one of the factors of his success, spiritually and materially. So it's not to say that this Bhagavatam is something theoretical, far away, can't help us today. No, it has so much value. And one more thing I learned from my teacher is, every Sunday, or maybe every day, depending on where you live, you'll come in front of the Lord. We have these beautiful deities here to welcome, right? And a question I've heard so many people ask, and I've asked myself is, what am I supposed to do when I come in front of the Lord? Am I supposed to ask for help? Am I supposed to just stare at him? It feels a bit awkward, I don't know. And what my teacher said is that actually the best thing you can do is find some verses that glorify the Lordships and offer to them as a gift. So we have Gaurata, so there's so many verses you can find about Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Mahaprabhu. If you just find one verse, read it off your phone when you see them next time, today, tomorrow, whatever, they'll be so happy. Because these verses are not our own composition. We're so imperfect. But these verses are taken from the pure devotees of the Lord, whom Krishna is very close with. So when we repeat these prayers, glorification, Krishna will give us so many blessings. That's what I've been taught. And on a practical level, it's a good motivation to also learn verses, so you can offer something to the Lord, right? And one thing I want to address is the intimidation of how big Bhagavatam is, right? If you stack it up, it'll probably be taller than me right now, right? So there's a simple way in which we can start reading Srimad Bhagavatam, and I wanted to give you one option. You can see above, there's an app on the Apple App Store, and maybe it's on Android too. It's called Be a Sage Page by Page. The idea is very simple. If you read one page of scripture a day, your life will change. And then you might get the motivation that, okay, I want to finish Bhagavatam, let's say in 1 year, let's say in 2 years, whatever it is. If you download this app, you can literally choose which Srila Prabhupada book you want to read, what time frame you want to read it in, whether it's weeks, days, months, or years, as you can see, and the number, quantity. And if you do that, it calculates the number for you and tells you, just read this many pages or this many shlokas a day. There's a toggle, you can change it. So we don't even have to think. We just have to go to an app, put in 3 things, and we get our answer. I believe if you read 21 pages of Bhagavatam a day, in 2 years you can finish all 12 cantos. Is 20 pages that much? No, for most people it's 30 minutes a day. And if you do 40 pages, if you have a lot of time, you'll be done in a year. And there's so much modern science and psychology into making small habits that have big results over time. So I would encourage you to apply that in our spiritual life too. Take a small habit every day, read, and just do whatever you can, and it'll build up over time. My Maharaj says it's like compound interest. You just put in a little bit, don't take out. And over time it'll compound, it'll become millions of dollars after 30, 40 years. That's the whole purpose of investment, right? So if it works materially, why can't it work spiritually? Now we've talked about the practical value of the Bhagavatam, and the last part of the class we want to say is that it's important to share the wealth. Because as Vaishnavas, we're supposed to be compassionate to all the souls. We're fallen, and there's a lot more fallen people out there, trust me. So we want to share this with everybody. And we'll give some motivation and some opportunity in this class now. The first thing is our founder Acharya himself, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He came at the age of 69, as we all famously know, from India to America to preach to us. And he has so many instances in which he encourages his disciples and his followers to distribute his books. Right? You can see the different years. He said this into different people. He said, this book distribution is the essence of our mission. I want that my books and my literatures should be widely distributed, as many as possible. And I want that every respectable person has a full set of Bhagavatam in his home. Now Prabhupada also embodied this mood, because when he came on the Jaladuta, I didn't actually know this for a long time, but when he came on the Jaladuta, not only did he bring 20 or 40 rupees, but he also bought a whole crate of first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the first part of that, but there's 3 parts he made that he had translated while he was in Vrindavan. And he bought a huge quantity of those to America. He didn't bring a huge quantity of clothes or jewelry or money or anything. He bought the Bhagavatam. So why is that? Because it is the most valuable gift. And in his first year in New York, he used the Bhagavatam to distribute, just to survive. And once he had enough disciples and means, he tried to make all of his books published and widely distributed. So we can see in the example and the words of Srila Prabhupada that this distribution of literature to each and every single one of us and to everybody out there is very important. Just for a show of hands, and don't be embarrassed, it's okay. Can I ask those who do not have a Bhagavatam to raise their hand, just to see? Yeah, so I see a few hands, because yeah, so I'm saying that not everybody has Bhagavatam. You can't make an assumption. There's so many of us who don't have it. So many of your friends, family members, even Indian people, those who are cultured, they might not even have this. So it's worth just asking the question, do you have it? And you can take this chance in the month of Kartik to get one for yourself or to get one for your friends, because it's the best investment you can make. I heard my Maharaj saying recently, people go to a lot of weddings nowadays, and we always think, what should I get this couple? And they already have a toaster oven, they already have a fridge. What are you going to get them? That's new, that's exciting, and personal, and helpful. Everything, right? It's hard to fulfill all those criteria. But he says, just buy the Bhagavatam. Just give them one. If they don't have it, greatest gift. If they have it, he says, what you can do is put one Bhagavatam in every room of your house, and then every room of your house will be very purified. Because what the Bhagavatam is the deity of Krishna himself. Right? People have encyclopedias and this book and that book, but why don't we have our own books in the house? It's important, right? Now, we have both established Bhagavatam as one of the key literatures to read and now give to others. But this applies for all of Srila Prabhupada's books. Many of us have been in this ISKCON movement for years, decades, or lifetimes, who knows? And we haven't maybe read all the books thoroughly ourselves. even the Bhagavad Gita, right? How many times have you read the Bhagavad Gita? Have you read it from front cover to back cover? It's something I'm working on, and we should all work on it. And when we read, we'll get the inspiration that this is worth giving to others too. So, I'm happy to say that right now the BBT, the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, has been doing year after year distribution of the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam on a huge scale. And this class is given at a time where the Live to Give Marathon for 2024 has just begun. And for those of you who don't know what this is, it's basically a worldwide campaign of all the ISKCON temples and devotees to print locally and distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. And this campaign is specifically for the Bhagavad Gita, because as we know, the Prabhupada Marathon comes in December. So I just got from my friend in the BBT these latest paraphernalia to say that the worldwide goal has been announced, and it's 4.2 million Gitas all over the world. And that's a big number, right? So this year we were thinking that maybe we can take a small art or a small promise to do something of our own to contribute to this goal. Even as ISKCON Tawaka, we have a magnificent community and temple, and we want to share the love that we have to others as well. So we were thinking that this year it would be wonderful if we could all come together and have a goal of distributing just 250 Bhagavad Gitas to those who don't have it, or those who need the as-it-is version. You can literally, we have boxes of Bhagavad Gitas in the temple. All you do is take 1, take 2, take 10. Find people who don't have it, who would appreciate it. People are looking for a lot of gifts. It's a gift-giving season coming up. You know, there's Diwali, there's Black Friday, Thanksgiving, there's Christmas, there's New Year. You have all this time, and just gift some Gitas. It's the best gift. And then for those who are already devotees, very much cultured to this movement and know the Gita, give them Bhagavatam. As you can see, we also have a goal of doing just 12 Bhagavatams as a congregation. Actually, looking at all of you, you're all so great. We can do way more than this. But if we start with this, we can build a foundation, and year after year, we can increase in our distribution of books. And I just want to address one concern people have. People might think, how can I give books to others if I haven't read it myself? Or how can I give to others if I'm not a master in it myself? It's a common question. But I can promise you that I'm not qualified, and I can still give the Bhagavatam and Gita to others, and it works. I'm able to give, people are able to appreciate, and people become better devotees than I could ever be because they take these books. Because actually, it's not us doing anything. It's not our qualification. We are just an instrument for Srila Prabhupada and for the Guru Parampara and the Lord to give this knowledge and gift to others. So, to end this class, I would really request each and every single one of you to please come together and help us out so that by the end of this year, the Tawaka congregation can hit this very small goal and then build a foundation for the next decades of book distribution. And with that, we'll end, and we thank you very much for your kind attention. Prabhu, is there any other questions?
No, I have one question.
Oh,
You were talking about reading Bhagavatam, right, in the month of Kartik especially.
yes.
So any particular canto we should read in the month of Kartik? Can you suggest something?
I think any canto of Bhagavatam is wonderful. I know HG Prabhu is actually leading a Kartik Yatra on reading, and he's reading the 3rd canto. So you can follow along on that if you want, but I think any sort of reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, even if it's just one chapter you're repeatedly reading, that's good enough, Mataji. We should always just start small and keep expanding. So whatever's up to your capacity, whatever canto you would prefer, just start with that and just keep going.
Thank you so much for beautifully singing the Srimad Bhagavatam verses. So I always wonder, how can we identify the meters of the verses? Can you suggest how can you?
Sure, Mataji. So this is the identification of meters. Is actually something called there's Chanda Shastra. So Chanda Shastra is a part of Sanskrit and its identification. So it's a bit tougher than that, but I think the best way to do it, Mataji, is there's many people who recite verses very nicely, like Amarendra Prabhu does, and Haripasha Prabhu does. There's many people. So what you can do is, you see how they sing. sing it like that, and then if there's a verse you don't know what meter it is, best thing is trial and error. Because if you don't know the specifics of how everything works within Chanda, it's better to just try something out, see it's working. If it's not working, try something new and keep going. And you can eventually figure out, you can get some feel for, okay, this is how it should be, this is how it should be. I think that's the best way. Of course, if you really want to learn Chanda Shastra, I'm sure there's a lot of people teaching. I don't know anyone off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure you can find someone who's learned it in that.
Thank you again, everybody, for coming and listening to us. Thank you.
So it's so inspiring to see Halayudha Kripa Prabhu and Tejas, so young and so fired up, so inspired, so enthusiastic, and